And welcome, Hoosier fans, to the first ever episode of the Assembly Call Halftime Report. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. Just something a little new that we're trying today. Just some quick hit halftime thoughts here. The Hoosiers lead Rutgers right now 40-30. And I think the most important thing we were looking at coming into this game is Indiana's mentality. Could they rebound from, the tough road loss against Maryland and then coming home against Purdue, obviously the Minnesota game in between, but coming home against Purdue. Sorry, let me turn my phone off. See, it's a little new for us here. Don't have everything, all the systems in gear. But how would Indiana come out and play? And I think the way they approached this game was impressive. It was a little bit of a rough start. It was 14-14 at the under 12-minute timeout. Indiana turned the ball over, 6-7 times there early. At one point, after about 5 or 6 minutes, their turnover percentage was 50. But the Hoosiers really settled down. And I made a note here when it was 19-16, and I said it felt like the momentum is starting to shift a bit, and I thought Indiana would go on a run. And they proceeded to go on a 19-11 run, get it up to 38-27. Again, it's 40-30 right now. So not one of those huge killer runs that we've seen, but enough to put some space between them, get out to a 10-point lead, and some nice cushion heading into the second half. In terms of trends that we continue to see every single game, how about Indiana once again holding another opponent to under their point per possession average for the season at halftime? Rutgers came into this game, I think, scoring about 0.95 points per possession. In the first half, they're scoring 0.88 points per possession. So Indiana really doing a nice job on defense. A big part of that is rebounding. The Hoosiers doing a good job of cleaning up the glass. And so it'll be important to see how does Indiana's defense translate into the second half, because without fail, while Indiana in the first half holds teams under their season average, those teams I can't even remember the last game that Indiana held a team under its season average for the game. So that means teams are having really good second halves against Indiana. We'll see if Indiana can be tougher on defense today. They're certainly going to have to do a better job of stopping dribble penetration to do that. On the offensive side of the ball, Indiana rebounded nicely from the up and down start with the turnovers. They cleaned that up a little bit, and clearly James Blackman Jr. came to score tonight. He has 3 turnovers. His defense hasn't been great, but he's compensated for it with 14 points. And that's the thing with James. He's not going to give you much on defense right now. He's going to turn the ball over some, but sometimes he can score enough to compensate for it, and that's what he's doing right now. He's got 14 points. He's 2 of 4 from downtown. But more impressive than that is he's scoring at the rim. And that's something that we haven't seen a lot from him. We've seen him get rejected, get out tough, lose the ball. And he's doing a nice job of being tough, going up, getting the ball on the rim, and they're going down for him. Another guy who I think has played well is Hunter Mascara-Perea. Tom Crean called him out after the Purdue game, said, we can't have a guy getting only 1 rebound in 17 minutes. Well, Hunter only has 2 rebounds, so he still needs to be a little bit more active on the glass. Well, it's not even really active because he's been active, but he's had his hands on a couple of rebounds, hasn't quite gotten them, but still doing a nice job. He's got 11 points. I think he's playing hard, doing some good things out there, and no fouls. So far, so good for Hunter. And I think defensively, one of the reasons why Indiana is holding Rutgers to 0.88 points per possession, despite giving up so much dribble penetration, is that Hunter makes a difference back there, and he alters the shots that opposing guys take. And so his presence back there is really helpful. So nice job for those 2 guys. And I thought Yogi really played a nice first half. Only had 5 points, but he also had 4 assists. He had 3 boards. He was very selective with his shooting. Only took 4 shots, and frankly, I thought passed up some really good ones. And I thought, I give Stephen Bardo a hard time, but I thought he made a good point that, Yogi tends to try and get his teammates involved early. We'll look for his shot more in the second half. I would imagine that if Rutgers makes this game close, Yogi will start shooting more of those shots that he was passing up. But I think he did a nice job of getting guys like James Blackman Jr., getting guys like Hunter Mascara-Perea involved, because Yogi's smart enough at this stage in his career to know that he needs those guys to win games. Doesn't matter if he scores 25 points and we lose. So that's, I think, the maturity of Yogi Ferrell. And I thought Troy Williams came out trying to do way too much early in the game, was turning the ball over, but he still had a productive half. 6 points, 5 boards, and that's what we're seeing from Troy. Whereas before, I think the way he started this game might have kind of taken him out of the rhythm some. He finds a way to be productive anyway. And so he's on pace for a double-double. And even though you look at it and you say, man, he made this, that, or the other mistake, he's still finding ways to produce, which is another sign of maturity for him. So we look at the second half. What are the keys? I think for Indiana, they've got to cut down on the turnovers. I have to keep reminding myself, because of last year, this team is actually 55th in the nation in turnover percentage. So they're not terrible, but certainly that first half at 26% is not going to get it done. If Indiana can take care of the ball like it did in the second half of the first half, then they'll be able to score plenty in the second half. Even with the turnovers, the Hoosiers scored 1.16 points per possession in the first half. So if we can just hold on to the ball, Rutgers is not good enough defensively to stop us, and so we'll be able to score points. And then it's all about what we do on the other end of the floor. So what I would love to see is for Rutgers to actually finish this game at less than their season point per possession average. Miles Mack, their best scorer, is injured, so they're not even at total full strength. Can we hold the team to under their season average? We'll see. If nothing else, with Rutgers only being at 0.88 right now, can we just hold a team to under 1 point per possession for a game? Can you do that for us, Hoosiers? We'll see. Certainly, if Indiana does that, they're going to win. But if we see the Indiana defense in the second half that we've seen in previous games, then Indiana's going to make it much harder on itself than it needs to be. But so far, so good. A 10-point lead. The other key, and I mentioned this on a radio interview that I did earlier this week, the Hoosiers need to start the second half well. We have seen Indiana games go either way based on the first 5 minutes of the second half. And with Indiana up 10, this is where you want to go on a 4 to 6 point run before that first TV timeout, get it to a 14, 16-point game. This Rutgers team that has lost 10 games in a row starts to question itself. They were just one game removed from having their starters benched for the final 5 games. So how much intestinal fortitude do they have? Put it to the test, Hoosiers. You have a lot more at stake than Rutgers does. And so I think how we come out and start these first 5 minutes, we can really set the tone. And I think if we let Rutgers stay in it, we're going to be in a dogfight. If we come out and play really well, play smart, and just let our offensive skill shine through and get a couple stops, then I think we can get the nice, easy victory that we all hope for. It's a road game in the Big Ten, so certainly nothing comes easy, but Indiana can make it easier on itself with a good start to the second half. All right, everybody, thank you for watching the Assembly Call Halftime Report. Couple quick notes. assemblycall.com/subscribe is our email list. We send a subscriber-only newsletter after every game. You want to make sure you're on that. It's totally free. Just go to assemblycall.com/subscribe to get it. And, of course, the Assembly Call postgame show begins as soon as the game ends. Go to assemblycall.com/live. I'll be with Andy Bottoms. I'll be with Ryan Phillips, and we will break down everything from this Indiana game. Hopefully it's a victorious episode of the Assembly Call. We'll see you then.